From Illinois Public Media, this is the 21st Show. I'm Brian Mackey. Last week, more than 50 Texas House Democrats left that state in an attempt to deny the Republican-controlled legislature a quorum for a special session. Among the agenda items on that special session is redrawing congressional districts. This is at President Trump's urging to give Republicans another up to 5 seats in the United States House of Representatives. That has kickstarted debates in red and blue states about creating new partisan redistricting efforts. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked about our state's own congressional districts last week on All Things Considered by Juana Summers. Let's listen to a bit of that.
Governor Pritzker, I want to ask you about your state. Republicans point to the data that President Trump won the state of Illinois 43 or 44% of your state's voters, but Republicans occupy just 3 of 17 House seats there, which is under 18%. So help us understand, what is the difference between the way your state has drawn its congressional map and the way that Republicans in Texas say they want to draw theirs?
We drew our maps right after the decennial census. That's when the maps get drawn in every state. Here, of course, the Texas Republicans want to midstream because Donald Trump asked them to do it, and they're all following their cult leader. They're intending to make changes to that redistricting. But this normally happens right after the decennial map. In Illinois, we did the very same thing.
All right. Well, one of the reasons we are talking about this is because some of the Democrats who fled Texas came to Illinois, where they've gotten the support of Pritzker and other Democratic politicians. In fact, Illinois U.S. Senator Dick Durbin was to be with them for a news conference about an hour ago as we go to air this morning. Here to update us on what's happening is Lauren McGaughy, investigative reporter and editor for the Texas Newsroom, a collaboration of NPR stations there. Lauren, welcome to the 21st Show.
Thanks for having me.
Someone who's reported on all this closer to home is Violet Miller, reporter at the Chicago Sun-Times. She joins us as well. Violet, welcome back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again.
And listeners, we're going to be talking about this on the show for about the next 14 minutes or so. So if you have questions, don't wait. 800-222-9455 is the number. 800-222-9455. All right, Lauren, let's start with the context. Why and how did this effort to redraw Texas's congressional maps come about?
So this all kicked off really in earnest last week, but this issue has been boiling for weeks now after President Trump asked the GOP majority Texas House to redraw the voting maps. As you mentioned in the intro, this is a midstream redraw. We just redrew these maps. We just agreed on new congressional districts, and now the president wants a redo that would hand his party 5 additional seats in Congress. Here in Texas, the people that draw those maps are state legislators. So we had wrapped up our regular legislative session for the year, and the governor called us back into a special session to consider the redraw of these maps and some other issues like flood relief after our historic floods here.
Violet, this is not the first time Texas Democrats have left the state to try and stop one piece of legislation or another from passing. In these past quorum breaking efforts, they've been to Oklahoma, New Mexico, Washington. What is your understanding? Why Illinois this time around?
Yeah, so a source close to the Governor J.B. Pritzker's office actually told one of my colleagues, Tina Svandelis, last week that Pritzker met with Democratic Caucus Chair Gene Wu in Oklahoma on June 28th when Pritzker was delivering a keynote address at a Democratic Party dinner. And that's where the two discussed this kind of possibility of these Democrats leaving Texas to deny this quorum. Pritzker offered up Illinois, and his team and the Democrats here have helped arrange, hotels, specifically the Q Center in St. Charles that's been in the news for the various bomb threats that have been sent there last week.
Q Center, interesting naming. Lauren, let's talk about some of the penalties and consequences these lawmakers face if they don't come back. What could happen there?
Right. These lawmakers are facing, not just the bomb threats that Violet mentioned and other security threats to their person, but a lot of legal threats coming out of the elected officials here in Texas. Right now, they are currently facing fines of $500 per day per member. Those are fines that were put into the House rules after the last time Democrats broke quorum to stop debate on a bill back in 2021. They're also, facing potential removal from office. Now, this is a novel concept. It hasn't been tested recently in the courts, but the Attorney General of Texas and the governor are both trying to remove a number of these Democrats from their elected office, alleging that they have essentially forfeited their job by leaving the state. Obviously, those Democrats respond by saying what they're doing is a core part of their job, that they left as legislators to block debate on a bill on a redistricting that they see as racist and unfair. So those court cases are going to be really important to watch. There's also a court case that Violet, I'm sure, can speak to, that was filed in Illinois with the Attorney General of Texas asking the Illinois courts to enforce Texas law there. So there's a lot of really novel legal strategies being attempted by Republican leaders in Texas to stop this quorum break.
Yeah, Violet, I don't know if you can speak to that. I saw State Senator Jill Tracy of West Central Illinois was involved in one of those legal efforts. I guess she's now a sort of unpaid deputy attorney general of Texas.
Yes, that is what she said. So Jill Tracy out of Quincy helped file the lawsuit in Adams County, so the southern part of the state. As Lauren said, just trying to get Illinois to enforce Texas law. But the issue here is what they're asking for is essentially a similar to scenario where states would ask each other to respect each other's like judicial decisions, things that judges had decided, rather than political will. And so I believe it was the Chicago Tribune that quoted a legal expert saying this was a long shot, if anything.
Interesting. Lauren, how are these Democrats funding this? Right, if they're getting fined, potentially $500 a day. There's hotel fees, presumably other expenses. I know that you mentioned there are some changes that have happened in Texas law. I saw Beto was trying to use his money to help support some of these. Do you have a sense of where the money is coming from to support this operation?
Yes, we have some idea. You're right that Beto O'Rourke, who has become a national figure for someone who ran for office in Texas, he has been funding this out of his PAC. We don't know what percentage, but we know that he has been a huge funder of this. But that has become a problem here in Texas because that's another legal effort by the Republican majority here. They have filed a lawsuit to stop that PAC funding this quorum break. And as of late last week, a judge actually did issue a temporary restraining order telling Beto's PAC he could not continue to fund it. Beto is now countersuing, and so that will also be a fight in the courts. There's also been money funneled into this from a PAC associated with George Soros, a Democratic superfunder. And I wanted to mention that, not only are these Democrats on the hook for the fines and the hotel costs and everything, but they're also potentially on the hook for their staff, any work that their staff is putting into this back here in Texas, kind of funding their staffs through any of the many special sessions that could be called for as long as this quorum break continues. That was also put into the House rules. So it's going to be a costly affair, and we're going to have to see how they backfill the money that the Beto PAC was providing. It's an open question. I'm curious about that too. I'm wondering if Violet maybe knows, but it's an unanswered question on my part, at least right now.
Yeah, so at some of the press conferences last week, reporters were asking, and we did not come away with a lot of answers. Some folks implied that there was some help coming from the Illinois end. Obviously, JB Pritzker is not short on cash, so it wouldn't be shocking to know that he was helping out with this too. But I've also seen several of the Texas Dems fundraising off of this too, so they may have their own money coming in from this.
Fascinating. All right, let me remind listeners this is the 21st show. We're talking about the Texas Democrats who've come to Illinois to break quorum on a special session of the Texas state legislature, where one of the topics is a partisan redraw of the state's congressional maps, even more in favor of Republicans. We're talking about what's going on and the effect it's having both within and outside Texas with Lauren McGaughy, an investigative reporter and editor at the Texas Newsroom, NPR station collaboration down there, and Violet Miller, reporter with the Chicago Sun-Times. Just about 5 minutes left in our time together, 800-222-9455 if you have a question. Lauren, why didn't Republicans already maximize gerrymandering in Texas, a few years ago after the census? Can you talk about the dynamics of congressional map making in Texas?
Sure. It's a good question. The Republicans have a majority in the Texas House and the Texas Senate. So when the map redraw happened immediately after the last Senate, I think a lot of people assumed they did maximize their power. Like most states where there is a majority party like this, the Democrats complained at that time that the maps were too partisan, were too in favor for Republicans. But they ultimately came to the maps that we have, and the maps passed, and they were in place. So I think if you look at how they're being redrawn now, they went even further, especially in these urban core centers like Houston, like San Antonio, even Austin, to eke out really any possibility of handing a handful more seats over to Republicans. So I think while the last time we redraw these maps, it wasn't necessarily called a bipartisan effort, it was more bipartisan than what we're seeing now. So there's always the ability to eke out more space if asked.
And Violet, what have you been hearing about? What people are saying about gerrymandering in Illinois. I mean, as we heard in that clip at the beginning, we have three Republican seats. They're extremely safe seats. And the Democratic seats seem fairly safe for Democrats. Is there, I heard somebody speculating, could we get like these thin districts that connect Chicago and Cairo, going down the entire state to try and dilute that even further as retaliation? Have you been hearing about that?
Yeah, that would be pretty wild, just in terms of the actual maps themselves. But JB Pritzker and other Illinois officials, along with officials in New York, California, other Democratic stronghold states, have threatened to essentially retaliate if the Texas legislature does redraw this map. This has drawn criticism from Illinois Republicans who, did not agree with the latest map redraw that was taken through the courts and eventually approved, and that's how we got to the Illinois map we have today. But they've kind of called the move hypocrisy on the part of Pritzker. But then again, there was kind of different circumstances around these. But this is something that's been going on for, decades. I first highly recommend Lauren's piece on the 1870 Texas quorum break. Super interesting, great sound effects. But also, this happened back in 2003 where the Texas Dems walked out. They ended up spending some time in Oklahoma and ended up I think they all returned by the third special session. And so, this is a kind of tactic we've seen a lot of times, specifically around legislative redraws. And the outcome has pretty much always been the same in all of them, that eventually the majority party gets their way.
Yeah, Lauren, how about that?
If you don't mind,
go
I
ahead,
just jump in. Thanks for recommending that story, Violet. I had some fun with the 1870 quorum break story last week. So it's right. This is nothing new. What's different this time? I covered the last quorum break we had in 2021, which was not over redistricting; it was over a voting bill. This time, I've never seen a quorum break like this go so nationally. The Democrats, by going to places like Illinois, California, and having these press conferences, they have very, very clearly made this a national issue, pointed to the president making a national issue. This morning, at their press conference, Dick Durbin said verbatim, this isn't just a Texas issue, this is an American issue. So I think this is just the beginning of, what Violet was describing as, I think, will be years of map redraws. A lot of people are asking, are we going to have redistricting every couple of years in different states to respond to whether we have a Republican or a Democrat in the White House? I feel like we're on the precipice of what could be a major change in American electoral politics.
Well, thank you for walking us through at least the first chapter of that. Lauren McGaughy with the Texas Newsroom and Violet Miller with the Chicago Sun-Times. Appreciate you being with us today on the 21st Show.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
Coming up after a short break, filmmaker Barbara Koppel. This is the 21st Show. Stay with us.
Support for the 21st Show comes from listeners like you and the Des Moines Arts Center, presenting Fear Les Baez, featuring colorful, large-scale works engaging history and legacy. On view through September 21st. Details at DesMoinesArtsCenter.org.